And I guess it highlights the fact that, it might not be founded, but these are probably some of the fears of writers. Again, let's not even be gender specific, just writers in general might have these fears about what if I get it wrong. And I guess this might be the reason I suggest why you are now delivering these workshops, and is to try and give people tools to write non-cringy and to have that confidence to do that. And what you said was very well said, what you explained there before. About stereo casting males, and how you sort of looked at the different profiles. Interesting for me. I've just finished writing a 90,000 word manuscript. It's a crime mystery, but
Have you finished it?
I finished it. Yes,
Well done, well done.
Take a moment.
Thank you, thank you. The first draft is completed. Now the real work begins, and the editing process kicks in. But one of my lead protagonist is a female detective, and it was something I've been wanting to do for a long time, is to have a crack at writing it through the eyes of a strong female detective. And I have to admit, it was a really it was eye-opening. It forced me to confront things that I've even seen around sexism and bullying in the workplace, and I told it just like I immersed myself in her character, and I was able to do that. And I think I was able to deliver a well-balanced story through her eyes.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, you take yourself out of your comfort zone and tell the story through your character, regardless of sexual orientation or gender, and you can start to empathize and tell their story.
Absolutely. And I think, that sort of broadens your mind as a human, not just as a writer. But I think, one of the things that I really advocate for as well in situations like that is sensitivity reading. So in Me That You See, I have a transgender character. She's not my protagonist, but she's a best friend sort of character. And that's an area that I don't have lived experience in. And so I enlisted the help of a professional sensitivity reader to read that character for me. And the insights that she was able to give were really invaluable, because there was areas that, obviously I was writing from a place of empathy and wanting to do justice, with representation, but good intentions can only get you so far. And I think, Jack, if you took that draft one and published it tomorrow, without kind of doing that due diligence of having, women read and give feedback on your story, then you might be missing out on another layer of richness that perhaps someone can add and assist you with. But I think it's, we can't write every character, based on our experience, otherwise it would be a very sort of vanilla offering in our repertoire, even though I'm certainly guilty of all my protagonists are, 2 to 3 clicks away from just being me. They're always, it's me if, or it's me, but.
It's me if I've had 6 wines.
Yes, but that's me.
That's you.
Well, hey, listen, we'll push on. There's still some more tips that I want to draw from you. We talked about examples where where a writer may want to insert a spicy scene. We talked about it can help you push your story forward. The next one is, and you kind of touched on this earlier, about revealing character truths. Tell us some more about that.
Yes, it's such an effective medium through which to reveal character truths, because, you can keep up a facade in your day-to-day life. But I think it's very difficult to do that in the throes of intimacy. I think, there's an element of letting yourself go, letting down your guard. And I think that, to use the example that we mentioned earlier, if you have a detective that's very, put together and steely and professional, and perhaps, in that moment of intimacy with a partner, we learn something about him that we otherwise wouldn't have. It wouldn't be revealed to us in his everyday life as a detective. And I think that that's got enormous scope for really interesting writing. But, I think I mentioned again, it's also a wonderful vehicle through which to reveal villainy. So you can spend half a novel really wanting the protagonist to get together with that love interest. And as soon as it happens, you just know that that was a mistake, and that something has been revealed, and this changes everything. And I just think that, it's just such a powerful a powerful tool to reveal character truths.
Yeah. The next one I really like, you talk about raising the stakes or complicating things. I can certainly see how I could do both of those.
Yes. I mean, just look back, through the archive of your life. When did having sex with someone not complicate things? I just think, I mean, in any number of ways, so maybe there's a reason that they can't be together. Maybe their feelings for one another are misaligned. Maybe I think we're happily ever after now. And, my partner is like, okay, that was great. See you later. We got it out of our system. So, I think that can be really interesting as well. There could be something that's keeping them apart. Maybe there's career or family implications that come into play. So yeah, I think it's a really effective vehicle for those sorts of reveals.
There was something else you alluded to earlier about language or word choice. And this is something I wanted to ask you about. I've got a few examples in mind of, ones I've read before, or not, maybe not read, or cliche. I don't know if I don't know whether I should go down there and actually
go for it. Come on.
Do we need a warning? A warning at the beginning?
Okay, PG warning. It's not over the top. It's like, for example, he thrust his manhood.
Oh yes.
So I don't know. Is that cringe? Is that
throbbing members?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that cringy?
Oh, I think so.
So tell us about, we're talking about language and word choice to describe those cliche kind of,
yes,
hacky descriptions.
Now, can we just take a moment to acknowledge the warm bath of cliche and just how comforting it is to slip into that bath and luxuriate? And I think particularly if we're talking about something that we find a little bit awkward, as we discussed earlier, due to our, Freudian foibles, I think cliche is the safety net that holds us. Cliche is often where we begin. And, we need to move through that if we want to bypass the cringe. But I think, those sort of the thrusting and the throbbing and the quivering members and the heaving bosoms, that's not really doing it for me. I'm
it was for me, but you just carry on.
I think we can do better.
I'm sure we can. I'm sure.
For me, and to return to our beautiful subgenre smut, there's genre expectations there where they use all the words, and sort of with reckless abandon, the sort of anatomical monikers, let's say, that in my own reading set my back teeth on edge. I'm not a fan. I will swiftly be taken out of a story with, if a man's intimate area is described with a D word, or a C word for that matter.
Yeah.
I'm just, that completely takes me out of the story. I no longer care if it's the love of her life, if they're going to be together forever, if there's something keeping them apart. I don't care anymore. They've lost me. And so what I like to do is find creative ways to describe what's going on without playing a sort of crass name game.
I think it's a term that there's another term I've taken note of where you talk about action plus reaction. And the whole show don't tell, where perhaps you can allude to certain things without being overly graphic or tacky. What do you mean by that? Action plus reaction.
Now, first, I just have to take a moment to acknowledge possibly the best quote ever from a friend of mine who's a writer. Her name is Mary Howley, and she's a wonderful part of the Melbourne writing community, just incredibly supportive of writers. She's a short story writer, and she writes novels as well. She's amazing. So I told her about my workshop, and she said it was at a writer's get together. So there was a table of us, drinking wine and being sort of, rowdy. And she said, oh, no, I don't write sex scenes. I can never figure out where the legs go. And I just loved that, because really we can get very fixated on where the legs are in all of this, in describing the mechanics of what is happening. And it can end up being a bit like this went here and that went there and I touched here. And that just takes you out of the story as well. So you need to really find the balance between what's happening, the interiority of the protagonist. So, you know, how this is translating to, you know, their emotions, you know, the sensations, you know, the sights, the smells, the tastes, you know, using that full suite of, you know, the five senses, to break up that monotony, that's really not pleasant for the reader, you know, to read. So you really have to strike that balance. And honestly, you know, in the first draft, it probably is a lot about where the legs are. You know, it probably is. You need to get it, you know, sorted in your mind, to be able to sort of finesse things and convey what you want, and convey, you know, the feeling that you want to elicit in your reader as well. Like, what is the point of your spicy scene? Like, are you hoping to turn them on, or is it comedic? I had another writer friend do my workshop, and he promptly took everything I taught him, twisted it around, and, you know, to hilarious effect. So all of the things that I said not to do, he did, and created this wonderfully humorous, spicy scene. So, you know, it depends what you're going for at the end of the day as well.
Yeah, it could be one of those, you know, like scary movie type things. You know, what do you call it?
Is that called a spoof?
A spoof. Yeah, you could deliberately do it as a spoof. That would be funny. Yeah, the mind boggles.
It does.
But
the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, but as you say, you know, talking about where the legs go, I guess you don't want your readers scratching their heads going, hang on.
Yeah.
I'm trying to work out the mechanics
legs? How many? Is that 6 legs now?
Wasn't that a scene from Naked Gun 2.5 or whatever it was? With all the hands and everything. There must have been about 20 hands coming in. So
absolutely.
And then I can't not mention, is it the movie Team America, the puppets, and there's the puppet sex scene. Have you seen that?
Oh yes.
I forgot about that. I reckon I should play a YouTube clip of that in my workshop and say, this is what we're trying to avoid.
Yeah. You have to see it.
The hand. And then it went in the mouth. Do you remember that? I'm gonna watch that after this.
You'll have to use it as a visual aid. So the puppet scene from Team America, it's a classic.
Yeah, so, it'll be in the podcast notes, guys. Just click the link below.
Now, I do have one final question. I think we're pretty well covered off on all the sort of the how-to kind of question. If you know what I mean.
We've got the instruction manual.
I know we talked
instruction manual sorted out, and now we're going to go for the feelings.
We've talked about the different genres, you know, from romance, love, erotica, and everything in between, and the different shades of grey.
Say it. You know you want to say it.
Smart.
Yeah, smart.
Drink. Drink, Harry.
Do you think
I've run out?
My question is, do you think, Anne, have reader expectations changed as far as what they tolerate? Are they more tolerant or less tolerant of explicit content? Are people, again, this probably it's too big of a question for you to answer, but I don't know, are people more or less offended now? Are people more resilient given the amount of content we see on screen and read on books? Or, you know, things that were written back in the 60s and 70s, were they far more explicit to what, I don't know. Do you think rules have changed or expectations have changed around what readers can now tolerate?
I think it depends on the individual largely. You know, we all have our own preferences. But I think one thing that absolutely has changed, you know, a big picture consideration is around consent. And if you look at some of the early Mills and Boon, or, you know, or that ilk, let's say that ilk of romance, there was an awful lot of bodice ripping.
And sort of coerciveness.
Absolutely.
Is that a word?
It is now.
Coercitivity. And I think that just really doesn't fly. I mean, there are pockets of the internet where that is a thing, but I don't dabble with the dark arts. But I think, you know, that's really one of the things. And to go even further than that, consent is sexy. Like, consent is, I think, a massive turn on. So having a partner in a scene that is checking in, that is seeking enthusiastic consent, you know, that is checking in with their partner throughout the encounter. I mean, that right there is something that, you know, gets me steamy as a reader. And I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful that that's the direction that we're going in. You know, equally, it tells an awful lot about the love interest as well, if they're doing that, you know, if they're that attentive, you know, switched on sort of partner.
And I think and flowing on from the, you know, the issue of consent and, you know, checking in and getting that continual consent, you know, as part of, you know, part of the story of the physical contact. I just had a thought, you know, who's taking the lead? Who is showing the initiative? And perhaps those roles could be changing depending on the circumstance. One party is taking the lead, and then that it's what, you know, so that's all part of, you know, if one is being more, how should I say, assertive in their engaging in this activity. That's, you know, that, I guess that's alluding to the fact that, you know, obviously consent is not an issue because they're taking the lead in this action.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, having a protagonist that will, you know, go after what she wants, go after her own pleasure. I know in Returning to Adelaide, the protagonist is a wife and mother. Her marriage has just broken down, and she finds herself in the Greek islands with an old friend who is something of an unrequited love. She believes that there's no way they can be together until there's a revelation. And she promptly takes what she has wanted for the past 20 years. And the reaction is sort of this startled delight from the love interest. And there's, you know, just wonderful opportunities. Like, she, at the beginning of the book, is quite downtrodden. And, you know, that spicy scene is the moment in the story where you first see her taking control of her life. And so it really means something in the broader context of the novel. And I've had, you know, a lot of readers say that, you know, they were kind of in that moment cheering because it wasn't just the sex scene, it was that turning point for her, and everything else hung off that willingness to prioritize herself and take what she wanted and take what she deserves.
I think for me, the big takeaway from what you talked about and the big learning is it's not just about the physical act. It's the symbolism behind it, as you've just described. And as you say, it has the potential to be a very powerful tool in telling the story about the characters.
Absolutely. Don't plonk a bonk. Like, it's very simple. It should be its own hashtag. We're going to start it. Yeah.
Well, I think we might call this episode
bong.
See, this is like, I don't know. This is, my reputation is like snowballing.
Well, this episode of the podcast, I actually think we might even turn this into 2 episodes, but it could certainly be called "Don't Plonk a Bonk." Sorry, I was going to say, I for some reason I had "pluck a duck" in my head from Hey, it's Saturday.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah, like, if you're into that, I'm sure you, like, it's the digital age. Like, you can find someone who's into that. Like, you could. I'm just saying, don't give up. Yeah. It's like, never say never.
Pluck a duck he was a character, but anyway, I digress.
I think that's happened a couple of times this evening, hasn't it?
It has.
Between the 3 of us.
Like, I think now's the time, before we digress too far. Now's probably a good time to wrap things up. And look, it's been I have to say, it's been a very informative chat. It's certainly opened up my eyes to a lot of things. So thank you so much for sharing your candid wisdom with us. It's been absolutely enlightening. It's been a lot of good fun too.
You're very welcome. And I look forward to reading your foray into spice, both of you. And I'm available as a sensitivity reader as well.
Oh, thank you. I'll definitely take you up on that.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute hoot.
And just a final plug for those people who want to reach out to you. I know you've got workshops in libraries, and you've got social media, very active in social media and your website. Where can people find you and find out what's happening in your world?
Yes, thank you. So on Instagram, I'm Anne Freeman Writes. My website is annefreeman.com.au. My next Stories with Spice workshop is in Melbourne, in Craigieburn, on Saturday, the 2nd of March. So all those details can be found on my Instagram and on my website.
Excellent.
Wonderful.
All right, Harry, well, your next task is to start writing a classy, spicy scene. That is your challenge. Are you up to it?
Don't hold your breath.
We can't assume it should be classy. He might want to go.
I'll just go for the smut.
Just go straight. Yeah. Don't hold back.
There, you've heard it here first, people. Don't hold back. Have a go.
Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen?
Sign up to the mailing list for updates about Harry's smut.
And of course, look, have a crack. And as you said, as you pointed out, that's what beta readers and editors are for, is to help you filter. Just get it out there, and maybe it might be a journey of self-discovery as you're writing this, and
right.
And then get that feedback.
Yes, and also research is key.
Research is key. There you go.
There you go.
Thank you so much, Harry. Good on you. As always, it's been good fun, and you've been an absolute cracker of a guest. So thank you so much for having fun with this topic. And I'm sure anyone who's attending your workshops will have a lot of fun. So all the best. Thanks, guys. Great to see you, and we'll wrap things up. Bye for now.
Thanks.
Bye-bye now.